Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama
Krishna Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 39. The chapter is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. We will start with the opening prayers and we will go straight into discussion. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya excuse me Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribol Haribol Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jayam Vishnupat Paramhamsa Parivacharya Stotra to Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupat Paramhamsa Parivacharya Stotra to Shishimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Gera Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Maipur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Dinamini. Namaste Krishna Padaya. Prabhashita Atmane. Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Shunyapati Pachata Desha Tarini. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we will be discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, verse 39. I will chant the verse 3 times and I request devotees to please chant after me. Yudhishthira Vacha. Naham Veda Gatim Pitro Bhagavan Bhagatavita Ambhavahata Putrartha Kvagata Cha Tapasvini. Naham Veda Gatim Pitro Bhagavan Bhagatavita Ambhavahata Putrartha Kvagata Cha Tapasvini. Naham Veda Gatim Pitror Bhagavan Kvagatavita Ambhavahata Putrartha Kvagata Cha Tapasvini. Hare Krishna.
Yudhishthira Vacha Naham Veda Gatim Pitro Bhagavan Kvagatavita Ambhavahata Putrartha Kvagata Cha Tapasvini. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to try?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yudhishthira Vacha Naham Veda Gatim Pitro Bhagavan Kvagata Vitaha Ambhavahata Putrartha Kvagata Cha Tapasvini. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else would like to try? Okay. We'll do the word-for-word translation. Yudhishthira Vacha, Maharaj Yudhishthir said, "Na, do not. Aham, myself. Veda, know it. Gatim, departure. Pitror, of the uncles. Bhagavan, O godly personality. Kva, where. Gatau, gone. Ita, from this place. Amba, mother, aunt. Va, either. Hata putra, bereft of her sons. Artha, aggrieved. Kva, where. Gata, gone. Cha, also. Tapasvini, ecstatic. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "O godly personality, I do not know where my two uncles have gone, nor can I find my ascetic aunt who was grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons." Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a good soul and devotee of the Lord, was always conscious of the great loss of his aunt and her sufferings as an ascetic. An ascetic is never disturbed by all kinds of sufferings, and that makes him strong and determined on the path of spiritual progress. Queen Gandhari is a typical example of an ascetic because of her marvelous character in many trying situations. She was an ideal woman as mother, wife, and ascetic, and in the history of the world, such character in a woman is rarely found. Om Maganatimirandyasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The translation: Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "O godly personality, I do not know where my two uncles have gone, nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons." So this is a discussion that is taking place between Maharaj Yudhishthira and Sanjaya. After Sanjaya found out that his master, King Dhritarashtra, has left the palace without informing anybody in the palace that they have left and gone to the forest at the request or demand or statement command by Mahatma Vidur. And Maharaj Yudhishthira finds out later on, where are they? Where are my uncles? Where are my aunt? So here, Srila Prabhupada, if we see that in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is glorifying Maharani Gandhari, Queen Gandhari, to be an ideal mother, wife, and ascetic. So if we look at the life of Gandhari as a wife, Srila Prabhupada used this very important phrase in the purport, the last two words, where he says, rarely found. It is very important that I think we try to really meditate on those two words and see that what has happened 5,000 years ago is very hard to do it in this lifetime at the present moment. That's why what's coming to me is Srila Prabhupada is saying to find such character in a woman in today's time is rarely found. Like the lives that people live 5,000 years ago, we can't live those lives. The kind of character that good men had at that time, for example, Maharaj Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Bhim, Nakul, Sahdev, the list goes on, right? We can't find them in today's world. Similarly, to find such spotless, pure, ideal women in today's time is very difficult, that we see, that we read about 5,000 years ago, we can't find in today's time. And if we think that we can find it in today's time, then the men should also be as good and virtuous and spotless and like the Pandavas and the great souls were 5,000 years ago. Even at that time, if you think about the great souls, of the Lord, the great devotees of the Lord, 5,000 years ago and before that, right? Many of the kings were great devotees of the Lord, but they had more than one wives. Like I was, which shocked me, I have to say. Like I think few months ago in one of our classes, we were discussing that Krishna's father, Vasudev, he had 18 wives. And all this while I thought it was only Devaki and Rohini. But he had 18 wives. Now, can men in today's time have 18 wives? And if you ask any husband, it's just managing one wife as a headache for them. They have to deal with one wife. It's not easy. So imagine having more than one wife. So in that same way, Srila Prabhupada is reminding us that we can aspire, we can learn, we can grow in the footsteps of learning to be an ideal mother and wife, but to expect the woman to be just like Mother Gandhari, is rarely found. So we have to always keep that in mind. Because if we see the life of Mother Gandhari as a wife, she voluntarily closed her eyes to accept a life of blindness because of her husband's perpetual blindness. She voluntarily accepted blindness. And if we think about, Mother Gandhari, like any young girl, right? Before they get married, they have some ideas, some dreams, some thoughts, some desires, some hopes. So I wish I get this kind of husband, this kind of qualities, this kind of character. Like if you think about Draupadi, right? In her previous life, she asked Lord Shiva for a boon, that she wanted a husband of these qualities. And Lord Shiva said, you won't find all that in one man. And when she took birth, from the fire, by divine intervention, by the boon of Lord Shiva, Tatastu, she had get 5 husbands, and each one of them had the 5 desires that she wanted. So what to speak of us in today's Kali Yuga, right? So any young girl, newly married, most of the time, when they enter marriage, they have dreams and hopes and this and that. And I'm assuming that Mother Gandhari may have had that. But even though we know that life is not perfect, spouses are not perfect, there's going to be ups and downs in relationship. But still, many women, even men, we have some hopes and dreams. But Mother Gandhari, knowing that she was going to get married to Maharaj Dhritarashtra, so she sacrificed her eyes for the sake of her husband. So much so, she did not even see the birth of 100 sons and 1 daughter. Can we imagine that? Can we just take a moment and let's step out of the bodily concept of male and women, husband and wife, but just as a human being, as a person, can we imagine blindfolding our eyes voluntarily for the sake of our spouse who is blind and able to give birth to children, but not see the children, like the physical feature of how my child looks? That's pretty strong. None of us can do that, whether male or female, man or woman, husband or wife. We can't do that. We don't have that strength. But she sacrificed for the sake of her husband, to the extent that she never saw how her 100 sons and her 1 daughter looked, even at birth. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 48, which we covered a few months ago, Srila Prabhupada said in the purport that Gandhari is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. That high level. So Srila Prabhupada placed Mother Gandhari at the level, or close to the level of Bhishma Dev. He said in the purport, Gandhari is no less than Bhishma Dev in character, because she lived a life of sacrifice, a life of an ascetic. And we all know that the life of Bhishma Dev was completely life of sacrifice. He gave up everything. He even accepted celibacy for the happiness of his father. He tied himself to the throne of Hastinapur until he was dying on the bed of arrows. Life of sacrifice. So Mother Gandhari, she sacrificed her eyes because of her husband's blindness. Because why? She did not want to be above her husband. He's blind, I will also be blind. Equality. This is a very good point, that I kind of caught last night when I was preparing for this class yesterday, that I said, wait, this was my thoughts, my realization. Her husband was blind and she voluntarily accepted blindness. She wanted to be equal. She didn't want to be above her husband. So when I was realizing this point that Mother Gandhari wanted to be equal with her husband and not above her husband, it reminded me of a comment that Mother Geeta made in one of our classes few days ago. You know, when a husband and wife, when a man and woman goes into marriage, where we participate in the fire sacrifice called Vivaha Yagya, we are sacrificing ourselves to support each other equally. Not that I'm above, you're beneath, I'm beneath, you're above. No. I will support you and you will support me. We will walk the journey together, hand in hand. It is very difficult to help someone on their spiritual journey when we are behind them or they are behind us. When we walk a journey, we go together, right? Like, for example, if we think of a child, you know, many of us who've had to deal with kids at a young age, when we want to make sure that the child is not running away from us, not understanding the boundaries of safety, what do? We hold the hands of the child so that the child is, one, the child's hand is in my hand. So that's a security factor, and I know the child is with me. And number two, the child is walking with me side by side together. I can see the child and the child can see me. That is spiritual journey between spouses. We walk the journey together, hand in hand, side by side. And that's exactly what Mother Gandhari is teaching us here. She accepted blindness because she wants to walk the journey with her husband on equal platform. Because Mother Gandhari was very elevated. Very, very, very elevated. And from this, we can learn that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us that how glorious Mother Gandhari is. She is teaching us the importance of working, the importance of walking the spiritual journey with our partners, with our children, with our devotee friends, side by side, hand in hand, so that they don't feel left out and we can be a support system. Support always means leaning on each other, right? We've heard this term. Support means we lean on each other. Now, if we are not side by side, how can we lean on each other? And whenever we think of the concept lean, we are leaning on the other person's shoulder, right? We can only lean on the other person's shoulder when the person is sitting next to me side by side. I cannot lean on the other person if the person is behind me or in front of me. So here, Srila Prabhupada is teaching us how it's so important that when we want to walk the spiritual journey with our loved ones, with our beloved, with our spouse, our children, friends, family, we walk side by side. Because that's what Mother Gandhari did. My husband is blind, I will also be blind. She could have said, I'll pluck my eyes out. That's worse than being blind. But she didn't do that. He cannot see colors, I'm not going to see the color. He cannot experience beauty, I'm not going to see beauty. So she brought herself on equal platform with her husband, because she's teaching us that, like Mother Geeta mentioned in her, in one of the answers to a question a few days ago, that I support you, you support me, we support each other in our spiritual journey. Very nice lesson for us to meditate on. Another point that Srila Prabhupada mentions here, she was an ideal mother. Now, we mentioned just now, early on, right? Not only did she not see her children at time of birth, because she voluntarily accepted blindness by blindfolding herself, she also did not see her children, physically grow up. Yes, she played with them, she taught them, she fed them, she did everything, but did not see her children growing up. And on top of that, she lost all her 100 sons in one war. That was no easy matter. What to speak of losing one son? if we just take a moment to think what it is to lose our child, as they say, all hell breaks loose. We lose our composure, we lose our senses, we lose our intelligence. We just don't know how to behave. But she lost 100 sons. And on top of that, even though she knew her husband, the king, Dhritarashtra, was wrong in allowing this war to happen because of his attachment to his son Duryodhana and being unjust to the nephews, the Pandavas, still Gandhari bore the pain of losing the 100 sons and continued to serve her husband. If we take a moment and we reflect and we say, oh my God, because of my spouse, man or woman, it doesn't matter, father or mother, doesn't matter. We're not the body anyway. If we were to lose our child, one child, because of our spouse, what would we do? How would we react? Right? Would we blame the spouse because of you? And would we leave our spouse? I mean, today's times that the divorce rate is astronomically high, very, very high. Would we just, walk out of the lives of our spouse because they took our child away, because they didn't listen to us? Like, what would we do, But here, Mother Gandhari, she bore all that pain of losing 100 sons and still continued to serve her husband. It's not easy. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says it's rarely found. Such character is rarely found. We can't find such high character women in today's world. It's very, very difficult. From this, we can see that she not only sacrificed her eyes for the sake of her husband, but she sacrificed her happiness, her joy, her children, who are the apple of her eyes, right? We've heard that frame before, especially for mothers, fathers too, but especially for mothers. We always look at our children that they, after actually both parents, father or mother, no matter how old the kids are, we always think they're little, right? But she sacrificed not only her eyes for her husband, she sacrificed her happiness, her joy, her lost her children, sacrificed her love for her sons, and the list goes on. And she never gave up on her husband. She continued to serve. She swallowed the pain and the grief. She swallowed the pain and the grief. And from this, we can learn that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us that Srila Prabhupada is giving us a lesson here. What made Mother Gandhari so ideal? Sometimes we get so focused and so tunnel vision into the point, but she was an ideal woman, an ideal mother, ideal wife, and I've heard this from young men sometimes. Nowadays, I don't hear that, thank God. But many, many years ago, I know I used to hear from men, who are looking for wives, if only they can be like Gandhari and Draupadi and Savitri, and, the list goes on, And I remember one devotee was speaking this to my senior god sister. Mataji, I really want a very nice devotional girl who's very pakka in this, can cook this, can cook that, can, do all these wonderful things and be very chaste like Mother Gandhari and Mother Kunti. And he gave all kinds of lists, Draupadi, Savitri, the list went on. And when he finished listing all the great ideal women of the Shastra, at the end, my god sister asked him, Are you any of the husbands of these great women? Are you as righteous as the husbands of these great women? Are you as pure as the husbands of the great women? Are you faultless, or and then he had to check himself. So here Srila Prabhupada is teaching us that what made Mother Gandhari so ideal, rather than focusing on the idealism of Mother Gandhari as a mother and wife, but what made her ideal. And if we see in the translation and the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions the word ascetic 5 times. 5 times in this little in this little 6 lines sentences here. Srila Prabhupada mentioned the word ascetic 5 times. So that is a word that we want to focus on for the next few minutes. What is the definition of ascetic? Well, I looked it up. Ascetic means characterized by or suggesting the practice of severe self-discipline and abstention from all forms of indulgence, typically for religious reasons. Very powerful meaning of ascetic. What made Mother Gandhari so ideal as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, is because of her very arduous, strong, determined, dedicated, severe devotional practices. She was very self-disciplined in her devotional practices. That's what gave her the strength to accept voluntary blindness. That's what gave her the strength to sacrifice her happiness. That's what gave her the strength to see the loss of 100 sons and still move on with life and serve her husband. That's what gave her the strength to take shelter of all her sufferings. And remember, she was raised in a very royal palace, Gandhar. Gandhar, Srila Prabhupada says, was actually part of Afghanistan. Now they've changed the name, I heard, from Kandahar or something like that. But it used to be called Gandhar in Afghanistan. So she comes from that part, raised very, very richly, very royal, and then got married into a royal family. But she suffered so much pain like an ascetic. So here, Srila Prabhupada is reminding us that the importance of taking shelter of devotional practices, the importance of following self-discipline in our spiritual lives, the importance of abstaining from indulgence that will pull us down in spiritual life. The more we discipline ourselves, the more we practice devotional practices, the more we manage our time in our Krishna consciousness and give time to our spiritual life, the more we will be able to handle happiness and distress and be equipoised. That's exactly what Mother Gandhari did. That's why Srila Prabhupada says she was an ideal ascetic. And if we see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada said an ascetic is never disturbed by all kinds of sufferings. And that makes him strong and determined on the path of spiritual progress. But in order to become strong and determined on the path of spiritual progress, we need a foundation. And we have heard that the foundation of our Krishna consciousness is A, B, C, D. A, association. B, books. Read, right? C, chanting of the holy name. D, devotional service. This is the ground, the foundation of our Krishna consciousness. And the more we pursue and improve and go up the ladder in our Krishna consciousness, the more we can become self-disciplined and abstain from any form of indulgence that's going to pull us down from our spiritual life. And it goes back, to the importance of devotee association, the importance of hearing, the importance of chanting, the importance of engaging in devotional service. So important. That's why this is the foundation of our spiritual life, being an ascetic. But it's easily said than done. And that's why it's so important that we take shelter, because that is how Mother Gandhari was able to bear so much loss, sacrifice 100 sons, lost 100 sons, continued to live on, continued to serve her husband, blinded herself voluntarily, sacrificed the happiness and joy till the very end, gave up the palace and went into the forest with her husband and her brother-in-law, Mahatma Vidur. Very, very powerful lessons. So if we look at the lessons in the purport, what I got from it, my realization is that we should always pray to take shelter of the devotees of the Lord, especially during times of trouble, trials, and tribulation. We should pray to always seek out association. Never leave devotee association. Never, ever leave devotee association, because when we leave devotee association, we are letting Maya into our lives. Because devotees are the only ones that's going to help us remember Krishna, serve Krishna, chant the holy names, and be under the shelter, take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's only the devotees. It's the devotees that's going to be by our bedside, by our side when we are dying. It's the devotees that's going to come and serve us when we need help at the time of death. It's the devotees that's going to understand our spiritual lives, our struggles, our shortcomings without being judged. It's the devotees. So we should always pray to take shelter of the Lord and his devotees, especially during times of troubles, trials, and tribulations, because we will be faced, as long as we're in this material world, we will be faced with losses, with sadness, with grief, etc. But we should always remember to take shelter of the Lord and his devotees, because that is what is going to give us strength to continue facing these challenges in Kali Yuga. That is going to give us the strength, the spiritual strength. Spiritual strength is what's going to help us walk through the fire of material life, Like if we think of Mother Sita, when she was put to test to walk on fire by Lord Ram, nothing happened to her because her faith was so strong. Her faith was so strong. So strong, right? So same thing, spiritual strength is what's going to make us fight. And I'll be very honest, this is something that my spiritual master told both my husband and I many, many years ago. And I want to say in the 90s, I believe. He says, even when we are facing material problems, that is when we have to increase our devotional service. See, what happens in today's world is whenever we are facing material problems, we spend more time trying to find answers to solve our material problems by probably, spending 8, 9, 10 hours trying to find answers. But no, when we are going through material problems, that is when we increase our devotional service. When we are going through material challenges, that is when we find shelter in our Krishna consciousness. When we are facing a lot of trials and tribulations and trouble times and what have you in our material life, that means, Anasuya, time to increase spiritual strength. And once we take shelter of the devotees who's going to help us increase our spiritual strength, we can fight with any battles that comes in our way in the material life, that gets thrown on our faces in the material world. Because we have strengthened ourselves with Krishna consciousness, with an invisible shield, bow, arrow, mace, what have you, right? So anything that gets thrown at us materially, we got our toolbox, we got our toolkit. Balabhadra Prabhu always says, that we have to make sure that we have the right tools in our toolbox. So we have to have the right spiritual tools in our spiritual toolbox. So whatever comes our way, we have the tools to take out and fight. Very, very important point here. So by this, from this purport, Srila Prabhupada is telling us and teaching us, Mother Gandhari was such an ideal woman. And he says that is rarely found is because she was a great ascetic. Her spiritual strength was so powerful, it's beyond our conception. But we are very, very grateful that Srila Prabhupada gave us Krishna consciousness to take shelter of. He gave us Krishna consciousness to really, really build our spiritual strength so that we can always be ready when Maya throws something, a curveball at us, right? And spiritual strength is not just one time. Building spiritual strength is a lifetime process. It's not just, okay, I've done my 16 rounds, so I'm good for today. No. There will be a way where a curveball will be thrown at us, and even though we've chanted all our rounds, we still get all shaken up. Spiritual strength is an ongoing daily work. It's not just one time, I've done it, the chapter is closed, I got my toolbox, it's finished. No, spiritual strength is an ongoing process. If we think about the toolbox example that Balabhadra Prabhu always gives in his classes, whenever we think of putting our toolbox, our tools in the toolbox, right? Sometimes they get rusty over time, right? So what do? We have to take out that rusty tool and we have to clean it, right? So that it does more work. Same thing in our Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we might find one of our strengths getting a little weak. One of our, anarthas are trying to sneak in. So we have to take it out and, do some work with it so that we can become stronger. So building spiritual strength is an ongoing process. Mother Gandhari never just prayed one day and she was done. Every single day of her life, she was very ardent, very self-disciplined in her spiritual life. Very, very, very. In fact, I was reading a quote by Srila Prabhupada, which I didn't even know actually, a couple of days ago, where he said that she accepted Srila Vyasadeva as her guru. I had no idea. I just found that out 2 days ago. Like, I had no idea. I was like, whoa, okay. So she accepted him as a spirit, as a guru, and whatever he instructed her, she listened. So she took full shelter of her spiritual life. And she prayed and took shelter till her very end. That is spiritual strength. It's an ongoing process. It's a daily process. It's not one time and I'm done. So this was my realization, my reflection from this very powerful verse that Srila Prabhupada, it's short, but it's packed. It's short, but it's power-packed. And I had to meditate on it, even up until this morning when I was chanting my rounds this morning, I was meditating on the verse and I said, wait, but in order to become ideal, it stems from our spiritual strength, which means we have to be self-disciplined. We have to practice dedication, commitment, discipline to progress in spiritual life, because that is our spiritual strength. And take shelter of the devotees. Devotees are the ones that's going to help us to grow, that's going to help us see our faults, which we don't like. That's going to help us see our narthas, which we don't like, but we have to clean it. We have to clean it. Sometimes we don't know our faults and we need someone to tell us so that we can clean it and get rid of it. And sometimes I think of it this way: it is better to know our fault so that we can get rid of it. And because if we don't know our faults, that one fault that we don't know because we are so covered and blighted is going to be the one that's going to be our biggest challenge, and is going to keep coming up, keep coming up, keep coming up, and it's going to pull us back. So it's very important that we really take shelter of the devotees. Very, very important. So the ABCD of our foundation is a devotee association, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, chanting of the holy name, and devotional service. So this was my realization from this class. I will read the translation again. I would ask devotees to please do share your thoughts, clarification, takeaways. If you have a question, we will try to answer them as best as possible. So the translation again is Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "O godly personality, I do not know where my two uncles have gone, nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons." Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So any questions, any comments, any takeaways, clarification, please do raise your hand, or you can just jump right in. Would love to hear your takeaways.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Jai accept my humble obeisances, squash your Prabhupada. When you were talking and you mentioned something about the solutions to material problems, I'm glad it's been a while since I'd heard that. But yeah, we were told by our spiritual master Bhakti Maharaj that there should be spiritual solutions to our material problems.
Yes.
Go after material problems with spiritual solutions. And you put it this way, spiritual solutions is in engaging more, increasing more in our devotional service. So thank you for reminding me, because that was one thing that I needed to be reminded about. Hare Krishna.
That's one thing that you also remind me about. Thank you. We remind each other. Thank you. Any other takeaways from this? Any other thoughts? Would love to.
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Nitya Gopal.
Wonderful class, Mataji. Thank you so much. There's a couple points that Prabhuji said, when we hunted with the material problem, we have to increase our sadhana.
Yeah.
That will help us to, come out of the, whatever the problem we are. That's my takeaway. And as you are mentioning, our strong sadhana helped Mother Gandhari to follow her instruction. And, she had a strong sadhana and full faith in the scriptural injunction. So what she had followed the Shastra, what is mentioned in Shastra.
Yeah.
So that is a wonderful. I like the point that her strong sadhana and the following the Shastra's instruction.
Thank you so much, Nitya Gopal. It's so true. As you were speaking, for some reason, I don't know how I was getting some goosebumps because it's so true. We take shelter of our sadhana, our devotional practices, our devotional service, increasing devotional service, until we get so much engaged that we don't even think of our material problems. We don't have time, right? And
Right.
that is the goal of life, is if we engage ourselves so much in devotional service and our sadhana, our practices, that that we don't have time to think about material problems, and Krishna will take care of it,
Yes.
That is so nice. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Very
Thank
nice takeaway. And Dar Krishna put a nice, she said, so true, Haribol, plenty of such examples where devotees come to our rescue all the time. Yes, absolutely. And I know that you had a recent experience of that in Vrindavan, Dar Krishna. It's so true, so true. And I'm sure we all can think of moments where we were on this dire needs and the devotees came to rescue us. And I want to share a pastime. Many years ago, this was when my husband and I first got married. This was in 93, and then in 94 we both had a lot of right after initiation, actually, a lot of purification. It was coming like boom boom boom, like nonstop. It was like, it was as if like Mother Ganga was rushing through all her mercy. It was amazing, very powerful. And at that point there was a time where we couldn't pay our rent, I think for 1 month. And we were about to get evicted. This was in Maryland. We couldn't pay our rent. And we told our spiritual master, and he mentioned it to my god sister, my senior god sister. And for that 1 month's rent, so that we could find some time to look for another job, we lost our job, lost everything, literally lost everything. Not even a job. It was crazy at that time. But the devotees pitched in and paid our rent so that we could stay in that house for 1 more month while we make arrangements to move out and find a cheaper place. And we did. We actually was able to move out, and we found a smaller place, an apartment, and we lived very simply, but it took the devotees to really rescue us, and they paid our rent. So yes, we need the devotees, absolutely. Thank you for that nice sharing there, Krishna. Thank you. And Shorab says, perfect class at perfect timing from me. The Lord just arranged. Thank you, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Shorab. Thank you. You always so prompt and so supportive in our classes. Thank you so much. Any other points from devotees? Any thoughts, any takeaways? Any reflection on this amazing class, that the foundation of life is our spiritual strength. And our spiritual strength is being very, strict in our sadhana, in, our devotee association, our chanting, our reading, and especially our devotional service, because that's going to give us spiritual strength to face any hurdles and wrenches in the material life. That's going to give us so much strength. And that's what gave strength to Mother Gandhari, because she was very, very, very disciplined, very dedicated. Just a humble reminder. Yes, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Just sometimes because of some of us on the call being fairly new, so just the word gets used so many times that I think it's best to define it now. So now when it gets used in the Sanskrit, then everybody understands what we're talking about. When we say sadhana, that is your devotional practice. Your hearing, your chanting, and serving in different ways. Hearing and chanting especially the chanting. So sadhana means devotional practice. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. Yes, sadhana means devotional practice. Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a good reminder for those who are new. Thank you. Yes. Just a humble reminder that this evening we will continue with Srimad Bhagavad Gita, hearing from Srila Prabhupada, one of my favorite stuff to do in the evenings. So nice to hear his voice and get more instructions. We will be continuing with Bhagavad Gita tonight, chapter 1. I believe it's verse 36 or 37, but we are going to continue with the chapter to hear a class from Srila Prabhupada at 6 o'clock this evening. Srila Prabhupada says, so please do join us this evening. And tomorrow is Gita Jayanti. We humbly beg devotees, please come to the temple tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We will be starting Gita Jayanti. We'll be chanting the whole Bhagavad Gita in English, which takes 3 hours. And we will be doing it with on a pre-recorded recitation by Vaisheshika Prabhu, a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So please do join us tomorrow at the temple. It's a really powerful experience. I just don't know how to explain it, but I think one have to experience it to live it, like you just got to be there. So it's really, really nice. And Sunday we have we have a special guest speaker. His Grace Vishnugata Prabhu is coming to give the class, and he's going to be giving a class called the Song of God, which is Bhagavad Gita, the glories of Bhagavad Gita during the Prabhupada Marathon month, which we will speak about on Sunday. So please do join us this weekend. Power Pack Spiritual experience. Until then, hope to see you all tonight and this weekend. Vanchakabdubhyascha kripasindabevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Rukmini.